Hello, it's time for more Bhagavad Gita Sadhana. I'm Atmadarshan or Laura. This is my assistant, Oliver, actually, my supervisor. We're talking about the Bhagavad Gita that can be applied to your life, as in finding a path that works for you to reach your highest potential, whatever area you want that potential to be in: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, etc. I mentioned in previous days that Arjun is talking to his best friend and spiritual advisor, Krishna. And Krishna has gotten Arjun through a big crisis. Arjun feeling like he has to now kill his own relatives in a civil war because that's his duty as a warrior. And asking Krishna, do I really have to do this, basically? And if I do, how do I make peace with this? And all of us, as we become adults, probably not something so drastic, but we see something going on and we don't like it, and we know we might have to deal with it. It's so easy to not deal with it. So if you're not dealing with it, then you can close the book at this time and go do something else. But if you want to do something about it, this is perfect, because we're in a part of the Bhagavad Gita that's all about doing. So this is what Arjun says is, I don't know what to do. What do I do? Which many of us, when we start the spiritual path, ask, what do I do to be on this path? Like, what does it look like? What do I have to meditate? Do I have to serve? What? And then what results will I see from that? And that is said to be what the first chapter of the section, the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita is about, because that's what many of us do. It's a perfectly normal response. We see something that's wrong in ourselves, and what do we do? The second 6 chapters has a different theme, and so do the third. But we'll get to those later. The first 6 chapters are said to be about karma yoga, the yoga of acting, not just in your practice time, but in the world. We'll backtrack slightly. We've talked a lot about chapter 1, and we'll view it in a slightly different way. In chapter 1, this is when Arjun looks out at the battlefield. He's all ready to fight. He's twanging his bowstring. His friends are all blowing their horns. Cymbals are being beaten. Yay, the start of a war. And he goes, wait a minute. War for me? I've usually fought enemies, but now this is a civil war. I'm going to be fighting and killing those I love, and they may be killing me and people on my side. Oh no, what do I do? And then when he realizes what is going on, he drops his weapons and he slumps in his chariot and basically says, I can't do this. And many of us find ourselves in this predicament, maybe on a daily basis. And we often want to just move through it and get to the next step, which is what Arjun says. He says, okay, Krishna, I want to get through this. Tell me what to do next. What happens? You're my teacher. But in chapter 1, if we skip over it, for some of us, we're actually skipping over a key part of our path, which is noticing what's really going on around us, realizing that we have a part to play in it, and then surrendering. Chapter 1 is all about, in essence, saying, I can't do this anymore. But it's not a passive. It's Arjun throws down his weapon. He sinks in his chariot and he declares, I can't do this. It's not the kind of passive aggressive, or I should just say more passive, of like, I can't do this, so I'm going to distract myself. No, this is looking at the situation and realizing perhaps you are helpless. So it brings to mind maybe the first step in many 12-step programs. Oops, this is what's going on. I do have an addiction and I'm helpless before it, and I'm going to actively surrender to it. Some of us might not like this idea of surrender. And if so, don't worry, there are other chapters in the Gita to serve us. But for most of us, this is a very key part of our spiritual growth. The blinders are coming off. We're looking around and seeing that the world is not ideal and that what we're doing in the world has actual consequences that can harm ourselves and others. And then we go, I can't do this anymore. I actively decide that I cannot do this anymore. I need to change because we can't change without giving up what we are. And this is one of the hardest parts of the spiritual path. We want to go on the spiritual path and become different, yet stay exactly who we are. Yeah. So today, when we sit for our meditation, I encourage you to really think about what is going on in your life, in your world. And is there a part of it where you're like, I just can't deal with this anymore? And to actively make that decision, I can't deal with this and something has to change. For many of us, this is the starting point for any real growth in life. And it's hard, but it's worth it. Shall we practice? We'll see if he can sneak out today. First, we'll do a balance pose, and I'll knock on the window when it's time to switch because, again, it's gotten very cold here today. Stay here. You stay warm. That's a good. Now we'll sit. If you'd like, you can do kind of a mudra that's no mudra, which is simply holding the hands up like you're accepting. You're either letting go or accepting or both, because you have to let go to be able to accept. What is really going on in your life and what do you need to just surrender to? See you in 5. Kitty, welcome back. Some of you have inquired how I stand the cold because it's quite a bit colder than freezing out there today. And I take an approach like in chapter 1. I sit there and I go, it's cold. And instead of fighting it, which is a natural response, I'm just going to be with it. That approach may work with other challenges or uncomfortable points in life. If you want to learn more ways to bring the Gita into your life, remember there's a workshop this weekend that you can attend live or by recording. It's Saturday, 1 to 3. And it really looks at dealing with uncomfortable situations in our society. And today's practice is dedicated to the prophets. And what I mean by that is anybody in a spiritual tradition or other tradition who is trying to tell us what is going on and who is, often too much for us to just take in and digest. Specifically Cassandra, and to my neighbor Cassandra, may you heal, who was blessed with the gift of prophecy, but simultaneously cursed that although everything she said would be true, nobody would ever believe her. Find what you know to be true and be like, that's it, it's true. And notice how your day goes. I'll check in with you tomorrow. Until then.